here. Subscribe so you never miss an upload.
First, a word from our sponsor, the Merry Mushman, the studio that brought you folklore bestiary. Blacksword Hack and Knock presents Nightmare Over Ragged Hollow, an adventure module for levels 1 to 2, fully compatible with BX, OSE, Shadow Dark, or Deathbringer. 80 pages of adventure with a fold-out screen cover just like the good old days. Nightmare is a sandbox with a deadly countdown featuring a village, 3 hexagons to explore, 3 mini dungeons, and 1 50-room dungeon. I love the layout. Stat blocks are shaded, main points and dialogue are bulleted. This is how modules should look. This is a short campaign, 15 days only, and it ships in August, so act fast by clicking the link below. Since the birth of role-playing games, your character has been defined by your character sheet. These sheets act as a menu of things your character can do. This is because tabletop RPGs evolved from miniature tabletop war games. War games are simulationist in nature, which is to say, they seek to replicate the conditions of real-life battles. That's how terms like flanking and campaign entered the D&D lexicon. War games need defined stats and skills because they are competitive. Players play against each other, and clear rules are needed to establish a level playing field between opponents. But tabletop RPGs are cooperative, and I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to recreate the Punic Wars. I'm trying to capture the tropes and beats of narrative fiction, particularly the pulp fantasy fiction of Howard, Leiber, and Tolkien. And for that, defined skills and feats fail miserably. I have my own modest solution. Replace complex feats and sheets with flexible dice. But before we get into that, I'm Professor Dungeon Master, and this channel is the home of independent homebrew D&D. So if you like the idea of hacking the game and making it your own and not playing by the rules of giant corporations, click that subscribe button and the bell icon so you'll be informed when we upload new videos. Okay, here's the thing. I hate character sheets. They're long, complex, they look like tax returns. They're a real barrier to new players and younger players, and they lead to conversations like, is that on your character sheet? Like, did you put torches on your character sheet? Because if it's not on your character sheet, you don't have them, which is ridiculous. Like, I would really go spelunking without some sort of light source. It also puts blinders on the players. They think if something isn't on their character sheet, they can't attempt or try to do it. And if they have a low statistic, they shouldn't attempt to do it at all. They say things like, I'm not going to jump that chasm. I have a -1 in strength and didn't put any skill points in athletics. I'm not talking to the town guard. I have 0 charisma. Let Tom do it. He has a +2 charisma and +4 to persuasion. Now the narrative is ground to a halt and we're talking about jargon and game mechanics. I want a game that flows, one that feels more like a movie. I'm trying to create a narrative. Just imagine for a moment if Feats didn't exist and every character could be a charger, crossbow expert, defensive duelist, martial adept, sharpshooter, or tavern brawler, and they could also smite and make sneak attacks just when they needed to do it. That would be so much cooler, and that's where flex dice come in. Flex dice, or as I call them in my game, deathbringer dice, are a pile of d6s that respawn at the start of every session. I use skulls to differentiate them from the other d6s, and players can spend them 3 ways. 1. To add to any d20 roll, an attack roll, save, skill check, anything. 2. Add d6 damage to any successful hit. 3. Subtract d6 of incoming damage. And you can use multiple Deathbringer dice at once, allowing you to jump that chasm or make that saving throw just when you need to. Flex dice allow anyone to swing from a chandelier, not just high dex characters or swashbucklers or those with a bunch of points in acrobatics. Anyone can turn a leg of mutton into a shiv and plunge it into someone's eye socket. You don't need a feat called tavern brawler, because I believe every player character has a God-given right to be able to kill an NPC with a leg of mutton. Anyone could take a guard out in a single shot with a crossbow just when it really counts. You can use flex dice to make sure you hit and do enough damage to kill that guy. It doesn't matter you're not a rogue, you don't have sneak attack, you don't have stealth or a sharpshooter feat. My Deathbringer game is really a bunch of rules, hacks, and variants that I use to play D&D. It's available at drive-thru below. But if you don't want to buy the whole game, you can buy DM Scotty's Luck Dice, which is a similar idea, and that's where I got the idea of Flex Dice from. Scotty uses Luck Dice in place of inspiration. When a player fails to make a D20 roll in an encounter, they gain a luck die, and they can save it and use it later on in the session. So if you're really unlucky in the first half of the session, you'll be more lucky in the second half of the session. It's a great mechanic for balancing out things and the quirks of the dice. You know how some players are just unlucky or the dice just go cold for them and then they just feel like they've spent the whole night failing. Well, that's not going to happen because the luck dice are going to balance that out. What I did with Deathbringer is just scale the luck dice and use them to replace skills and feats. So you automatically start with a certain amount of dice, and as your character rises in level, they begin the session with more. Flex dice cannot be recovered with healing, short rests, long rests, or Liamon's Tiny Hut, or any other loophole spell. They respawn at the beginning of the next session. The reasoning is they're a narrative mechanic. A session might cover several game days, but the narrative begins when the players arrive and start eating Doritos and ends when they leave. You can always award extra flex dice in place of inspiration. But be judicious. You want your players to feel confident but not invincible. Shadow and the Demon Lord, another great game by Robert Schwab, who worked on the 5th edition, uses a similar flexible mechanic called Banes and Boons. If your character is a sailor and wants to pilot a ship or navigate by the stars, or even tie a knot, then they get what's called a boon. It's a bonus D6 to do sailor-type things. And that just replaces all those microtransaction skills like fishing and navigating and sailing. Black Hack is a similar mechanic tied to character backgrounds. Even D&D has an optional rule called proficiency dice. It's in the optional rules in the DMG, and it's the same concept. Instead of a static proficiency number, you roll a proficiency die because dice are more fun. Flex dice, luck dice, Deathbringer dice, whatever you want to call them, they make the game so much more faster and fluid. They allow the players to stay in the narrative and take their turns faster, and when it comes to their turn, they're no longer looking down at the character sheet at what they can do or looking for some sort of +1 5% bonus. That's all a +1 is. It's a +5% bonus. It's pretty much inconsequential, but they're no longer thinking that way. They're no longer doing character sheet thinking. Instead, they're thinking in terms of the narrative, and they're more likely to do risky things because they know they have those luck dice or Deathbringer dice backing them up. There's no more hesitation and negative thinking, and my character can't do that. You just live in the moment. Any of my patrons or the members of the Dungeon Craft Facebook group who've bought Deathbringer all say the same thing. That once they play Deathbringer with these dice, it's regular D&D. It's just like watching paint dry. But that's what I think. What do you think? I'd love for you to share your ideas in the comments below. You can also check out Deathbringer and Luck Dice at the links below and can support my work and get extra stuff like the expanded version of Deathbringer on Patreon. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon. May all your rolls be 20s.
Deathbringer again. Did you get my game yet? Buy it today so we can re-enter Drive-Thru's top 10 chart. And I can continue my charity work, raising awareness about the world's vanishing bikini models. I will find you, Heidi Klum. Now go and watch more Dungeon Craft.